Hello there and welcome to Deep Somna. Tonight, you don't have to solve anything, fix anything, or hold the whole world together. For a while, you can let the noise of the day fall away, notifications, conversations, half-finished thoughts, until all that's left is the simple fact that you are here, on a small, living planet, turning slowly through space. As your body settles and your breathing finds its own quiet rhythm, the world outside your window keeps moving in ways you almost never see. Oceans are circulating, forests are breathing, microscopic lives are beginning and ending by the billions. Vast systems are unfolding whether anyone is watching or not. This is your invitation to drift alongside them. We're going to move gently, from the scale of single cells to entire ecosystems, from the deep past of the planet to the sleeping mind inside your skull. There's nothing you need to remember. You can let the details wash over you like waves, keeping only whatever feels soothing, and letting the rest dissolve into the background. And as your thoughts start to loosen and stretch out, you might imagine the planet itself exhaling, settling into its own nocturnal rhythm, somewhere in the stillness, beneath layers of atmosphere and ocean and stone. The world hums with invisible processes, somewhere in the stillness, beneath layers of atmosphere and ocean and stone. The world hums with invisible processes. Life moves through its rhythms whether noticed or not. And tonight, there is time to drift slowly through some of those rhythms, to let the mind settle on details ordinarily too small, or too slow, or too ancient to register in the noise of waking hours. The planet turns. Light falls differently now than it did 4 billion years ago. The air tastes different. The water carries different chemistries, and yet the fundamental conversation between energy and matter continues, uninterrupted, a dialogue written in molecules and minerals, and the slow accumulation of change begin with something almost too small to see. A single bacterial cell, perhaps no more than a micrometer across, suspended in a drop of seawater. Inside that cell, proteins fold and unfold in patterns determined by sequences of amino acids, themselves determined by arrangements of nucleotides in coiled strands of DNA. Each fold, each chemical bond formed or broken, releases or absorbs tiny quantities of energy. The cell does not think. It does not plan, but it responds to gradients of salt, temperature, light, nutrients. It swims toward what it needs and away from what might harm it, propelled by a rotating flagellum that spins like a microscopic propeller, powered by the flow of protons across its membrane. This particular bacterium belongs to a lineage older than trees, older than fungi, older than any creature with a nucleus in its cells. Its ancestors were among the first living things to produce oxygen as a metabolic byproduct, slowly transforming an atmosphere that once would have been poisonous to most modern life. Over hundreds of millions of years, that oxygen accumulated, dissolved into oceans, reacted with iron and other elements, changed the chemistry of stone and sky. The world rusted. The sky brightened, and eventually, oxygen became the very fuel that powers the metabolism of complex organisms, from insects to elephants to the thoughts forming in a human brain. The bacterium spins in its drop of water, unaware that it carries within itself an inheritance spanning billions of generations. Its membrane is studded with proteins nearly identical to those in bacteria living in hydrothermal vents 3 kilometers below the ocean's surface. The genetic instructions for building those proteins have been copied and passed along, modified slightly by mutation and selection, but fundamentally preserved across unimaginable spans of time. If that cell could be traced backward through its lineage, parent to parent, the chain would extend without a single break to the very origin of cellular life. And yet this cell is not eternal. It will divide, perhaps within hours, splitting into 2 daughter cells, each carrying a copy of the genetic material. Or it will be consumed by a larger organism, digested, its molecules recycled into other forms, or it will drift into conditions too harsh, too cold or hot or acidic, and its membrane will fail, its proteins denature, its intricate molecular machinery cease functioning. Individual cells die constantly, but the lineage persists. Zoom outward now. The drop of water containing this bacterium is part of a larger system, a tide pool along a rocky coast where waves break and retreat, where temperature and salinity shift with the daily and monthly cycles of sun and moon. The pool is lined with organisms that anchor themselves to stone. Barnacles secreting calcium carbonate shells, mussels filtering particles from the water, algae forming dense mats that photosynthesize during daylight hours. Each incoming wave brings fresh nutrients, plankton, dissolved gases. Each retreating wave carries away waste, larvae, fragments of organic matter. The pool is a microcosm of exchange, never quite the same from one moment to the next, and yet maintaining a kind of dynamic equilibrium. Predatory snails move slowly across the rocks, drilling through the shells of barnacles with specialized radulae, consuming the soft tissue within. Sea stars extend their stomachs outside their bodies to digest prey externally. Crabs scuttle through crevices, scavenging what they can. At night, when the tide is low and the pool is isolated from the open ocean, oxygen levels can drop as respiratory organisms consume what photosynthetic ones produce during the day. Some creatures burrow into sand or hide under stones. Others remain active, feeding in darkness. The pool is never truly still. Even in the quietest hours, currents of water circulate, driven by subtle differences in temperature and density. Consider the barnacle. It begins life as a microscopic larva drifting in the open ocean, carried by currents far from where it hatched. The larva does not eat, but lives off energy stored in a yolk sac. It swims using appendages that beat in coordinated rhythms, moving toward light or away from it, responding to chemical cues in the water. Eventually, if conditions are right, the larva settles onto a hard surface, cements itself in place headfirst, and undergoes metamorphosis. Its body reorganizes. It secretes a shell. It extends feathery legs through an opening in that shell to sweep food from the water. Once settled, the barnacle will never move again. It will remain fixed to that spot for the entirety of its adult life, which might span several years. Around it, other larvae settle, forming dense clusters. Competition for space is intense. Some barnacles grow over others, smothering them. Some are dislodged by waves or consumed by predators. The ones that survive grow slowly, adding layers to their shells, filtering millions of liters of water over their lifetimes. The tide pool, with its barnacles and algae and bacteria, sits at the edge of a much larger body of water. The ocean covers 71% of Earth's surface, holding about 97% of the planet's water. Its average depth is nearly 4 kilometers, though in some trenches it plunges to more than 11. Light penetrates only the uppermost few hundred meters. Below, that lies a vast, cold, dark realm where pressure increases by 1 atmosphere for every 10 meters of depth. In the deepest trenches, pressures exceed 1,000 atmospheres. At such pressures, gases behave strangely. Proteins can be deformed. Membranes can become rigid or permeable in unintended ways. And yet organisms live there. Fish with gelatinous bodies and oversized eyes, amphipods larger than a human hand, sea cucumbers that glide across sediment-consuming organic particles that drift down from the sunlit surface. These deep-sea creatures have evolved adaptations that seem, from a surface-dwelling perspective, almost alien. Their cells contain high concentrations of small organic molecules that stabilize proteins under pressure. Their enzymes function at temperatures just above freezing. Some species have lost traits that are costly to maintain in an environment where food is scarce. Eyes, pigmentation, even digestive systems, in cases where organisms rely entirely on symbiotic bacteria for nutrition. Hydrothermal vents on the ocean floor release superheated water-rich and dissolved minerals and gases. Around these vents, ecosystems thrive without any energy from sunlight. Chemosynthetic bacteria oxidize hydrogen sulfide or methane, converting chemical energy into organic molecules. These bacteria form the base of food webs that include giant tube worms, clams, crabs, fish. The tube worms, which can grow over 2 meters long, have no mouths or digestive tracts. They house chemosynthetic bacteria inside specialized organs and rely entirely on those bacteria for nutrition. The hydrothermal vent communities are thought to resemble, in some ways, the environments where life on Earth may have originated. In the early ocean, before photosynthesis evolved, chemical energy would have been the primary source of fuel for metabolism. Some scientists propose that life began in such settings, perhaps within porous mineral structures, where chemical gradients could be harnessed to drive the synthesis of complex organic molecules. The exact sequence of events that led to the first living cell remains uncertain, but several conditions seem necessary. A source of energy, a way to concentrate organic molecules, a membrane to separate inside from outside, and a mechanism for heredity. Some molecule or set of molecules capable of storing and transmitting information across generations. RNA, which can both store information and catalyze chemical reactions, is a leading candidate for the first genetic material. Over time, systems based on RNA might have given rise to systems based on DNA and proteins, which offer greater stability and versatility. Once replicating systems existed, evolution by natural selection became inevitable. Variants that reproduced more efficiently or survived longer in available environments would become more common over generations. Complexity could increase through the accumulation of small modifications, each conferring some advantage or at least not being strongly detrimental. Cooperation between different replicating molecules could lead to more integrated systems. Membranes could evolve to regulate what enters and exits the cell. Metabolic pathways could become more efficient. Billions of years separate those early cells from the organisms visible in the tide pool today. but the underlying principles remain the same. Organisms extract energy from their surroundings, build and maintain their structures, respond to environmental cues, reproduce. They compete for resources, cooperate when cooperation enhances survival or reproduction, adapt to changing conditions through mutation and selection. Consider now the forest that begins where the rocky shore gives way to soil and vegetation. Trees grow vertically, competing for light. Their roots extend downward and outward, searching for water and nutrients. In temperate regions, many trees are deciduous, shedding their leaves in autumn to reduce water loss during winter, when frozen soil makes water uptake difficult. In tropical regions, where temperatures and rainfall are more constant, many trees retain their leaves year-round, though some species time their leaf drop to coincide with dry seasons. A single large tree can transport hundreds of liters of water from soil to leaves each day. This water moves through a vascular system of xylem vessels, driven primarily by evaporation from leaf surfaces. As water evaporates from the tiny pores called stomata, it pulls more water up from the roots through cohesion and adhesion, creating a continuous column of water under tension. The process is passive, requiring no energy expenditure by the tree beyond the energy needed to open and close stomata. The tree's leaves are biochemical factories. Inside each leaf cell, chloroplasts capture photons of light using pigments, primarily chlorophyll, which absorbs red and blue wavelengths while reflecting green. The captured light energy drives reactions that split water molecules, releasing oxygen as a byproduct and generating energy-rich molecules like ATP and NADPH. These molecules then power the Calvin cycle, a series of reactions that fix carbon dioxide from the air into sugars. Those sugars fuel the tree's growth and metabolism. Some are broken down through cellular respiration to release energy. Others are polymerized into cellulose for cell walls, into starches for energy storage, into lignin that stiffens woody tissue. A tree is, in essence, built from air and water and sunlight, with small amounts of minerals absorbed from soil. But a tree does not grow in isolation. Its roots intermingle with fungal hyphae, forming mycorrhizal associations. The fungus extends the tree's reach, accessing nutrients beyond where roots alone can penetrate. In exchange, the tree supplies the fungus with sugars produced through photosynthesis. The relationship is mutualistic, benefiting both partners, though the balance can shift depending on environmental conditions. Mycorrhizal networks can connect multiple trees, even trees of different species. Sugars and nutrients can flow through these networks, redistributed across the forest. Older, larger trees with extensive root systems and deep access to water may support younger trees growing in their shade. The forest functions not as a collection of isolated individuals, but as an interconnected community. Resources flowing through underground channels in patterns that shift with seasons and years. Above ground, the forest canopy hosts its own communities. Insects feed on leaves, bark, sap. Birds feed on insects or seeds or nectar. Mammals climb through branches or nest in hollows. Lichens and mosses colonize bark. Epiphytic plants, including some orchids and bromeliads, grow on tree branches without parasitizing their hosts, capturing nutrients from dust and rain. Each organism occupies a niche defined by what it eats, where it lives, when it is active, what it competes with, what preys upon it. Niches overlap. Resources are contested. But competition is not the only interaction. Pollination, seed dispersal, decomposition, nutrient cycling all involve cooperation, or at least mutual dependence among different species. A flower produces nectar to attract pollinators. The pollinator, perhaps a bee or hummingbird or bat, consumes the nectar and in the process transfers pollen from one flower to another, enabling fertilization. The plant invests energy in producing nectar and showy petals. The pollinator invests time and energy in searching for flowers. Both benefit. The relationship has been refined over millions of years through coevolution, each partner exerting selective pressure on the other. Some interactions are more one-sided. Parasites extract resources from hosts, often harming them in the process. A parasitic wasp lays eggs inside a caterpillar. The larvae hatch and consume the caterpillar from the inside, eventually killing it. The wasp benefits. The caterpillar does not, yet even parasitism can shape evolution in complex ways. Hosts evolve defenses. Parasites evolve counter-defenses. The ongoing arms race can drive rapid evolutionary change. Decomposers break down dead organic matter, returning nutrients to soil and water, where they can be taken up by plants and other primary producers. Fungi and bacteria are the primary decomposers, secreting enzymes that break down complex molecules like cellulose and lignin. Without decomposition, nutrients would remain locked in dead tissue, unavailable for new growth. The forest would be buried under its own debris. Ecosystems are shaped by climate, geology, evolutionary history, and chance events. A volcanic eruption can wipe out vegetation across a large area, creating bare ground that is slowly recolonized by pioneering species adapted to harsh conditions. Over time, soil develops, and more demanding species can establish themselves. Succession proceeds until a relatively stable community emerges, though that community continues to change in response to disturbances like fires, storms, disease outbreaks. Fire in some ecosystems is a regular part of the natural cycle. Certain plants have evolved traits that help them survive or even benefit from fire. Some seeds germinate only after exposure to heat or smoke. Some trees have thick bark that insulates living tissue from flames. After a fire, nutrients are released from burned vegetation, and light reaches the forest floor, allowing fire-adapted species to flourish before the canopy closes again. Climate oscillates on multiple timescales. Daily and seasonal cycles are the most obvious, but there are also longer cycles driven by variations in Earth's orbit and axial tilt. These Milankovitch cycles influence how much solar radiation different parts of the planet receive at different times of year, triggering ice ages and interglacial periods on timescales of tens of thousands to hundreds of thousands of years. During ice ages, ice sheets advance across continents, locking up water and lowering sea levels. Ecosystems shift toward the equator or to lower elevations. Species that cannot migrate or adapt go extinct. When ice retreats, forests and grasslands expand poleward and upward. Species redistribute themselves across the changing landscape. The current interglacial period, the Holocene, began roughly 11,700 years ago. Before that, much of North America and Europe was covered by ice. As the ice melted, plants and animals colonized the newly exposed land. Humans, who had already spread, across much of the world began developing agriculture, domesticating plants and animals, building permanent settlements. Human activity has become a major force shaping ecosystems. Forests are cleared for agriculture. Rivers are dammed. Species are transported across continents and oceans, deliberately or accidentally, disrupting existing communities. Chemicals are released into air and water. The atmospheric concentration of carbon dioxide has increased due to burning of fossil fuels, altering the planet's energy balance and driving changes in climate. But humans are not separate from nature. They are part of it, one species among millions, subject to the same biological principles. The tools and technologies developed by human societies are extensions of biological evolution. Cultural evolution layered atop genetic evolution. Both processes driven by variation, selection, and inheritance. A human body contains roughly 37 trillion cells, each descended from a single fertilized egg. Those cells differentiate into hundreds of specialized types: neurons, muscle cells, epithelial cells, immune cells, each with distinct shapes and functions. Coordinating the activities of all those cells requires intricate communication networks involving hormones, neurotransmitters, and other signaling molecules. The nervous system, in particular, is astonishingly complex. The human brain contains roughly 86 billion neurons, each forming thousands of synaptic connections with other neurons. Electrical impulses race along axons. Neurotransmitters diffuse across synaptic clefts. Patterns of activity shift constantly, encoding sensations, memories, thoughts, emotions. Consciousness, the subjective experience of being, emerges somehow from this neural activity. How exactly remains one of the deepest mysteries in science. Neurons are physical objects, governed by the laws of chemistry and physics. Consciousness feels like something more, something irreducible to mere matter in motion, and yet damage to specific brain regions can alter personality, impair memory, eliminate the ability to recognize faces or understand language. The mind appears to be, at minimum, deeply dependent on the brain. Sleep itself is a brain state, distinct from waking and characterized by reduced responsiveness to external stimuli, altered patterns of neural activity, and specific stages that cycle throughout the night. During sleep, the brain consolidates memories, clears metabolic waste, regulates hormone levels. Depriving an organism of sleep leads to cognitive impairment, weakened immune function, and eventually death. The purpose of sleep, why it evolved, and why it persists across nearly all animal species is not entirely understood. But its universality suggests it serves functions critical to survival. Perhaps sleep allows the brain to perform maintenance that cannot happen while actively processing sensory information and coordinating behavior. Perhaps it conserves energy during times when foraging or other activities would be inefficient or dangerous. Different species sleep in different ways. Some birds and marine mammals can sleep with one half of their brain at a time, allowing them to remain partially alert for predators or to continue swimming or flying. Some animals enter torpor, a state of reduced metabolic activity that can last hours, days, or even months, conserving energy when food is scarce or temperatures are extreme. Hibernating mammals, like bears or ground squirrels, lower their body temperature dramatically, slow their heart rate and breathing, and survive for months without eating or drinking. Their metabolism shifts to rely on stored fat. Waste products are reabsorbed rather than excreted. When spring arrives and temperatures rise, they gradually rewarm and resume normal activity. Migration is another strategy for coping with seasonal changes. Birds fly thousands of kilometers between breeding and wintering grounds, navigating using a combination of visual landmarks, the position of the sun and stars, and sensitivity to Earth's magnetic field. Some species of whales, sea turtles, and fish undertake similarly long journeys, returning to specific locations with remarkable precision. The mechanisms underlying navigation are varied and sophisticated. Some involve detecting polarized light patterns in the sky. Some involve remembering sequences of landmarks. Some involve sensing gradients in magnetic field intensity or inclination. Young animals often learn migration routes by following experienced individuals, but in some species, navigation appears to be largely innate, encoded genetically and requiring little or no learning. Monarch butterflies undertake multi-generational migrations, with no single individual completing the full cycle. Butterflies that emerge in late summer and early autumn enter a reproductive diapause, living much longer than summer generations, and fly south to overwintering sites in Mexico or California. In spring, these individuals mate and begin flying north, laying eggs on milkweed plants. Their offspring continue the northward journey, reproducing and dying along the way. Several generations later, descendants reach the northern breeding grounds. In autumn, the cycle repeats. How monarchs navigate to specific overwintering sites they have never visited remains partly mysterious. They appear to use a time-compensated sun compass, adjusting their flight direction based on the sun's position and their internal circadian clock. Magnetic cues may also play a role. The result is a migration spanning thousands of kilometers, accomplished by insects weighing less than a gram. Insects, despite their small size, exhibit remarkable diversity in form, behavior, and ecological role. There are more described species of beetles than of all plants combined. Ants and termites form colonies that can number in the millions, with complex division of labor and sophisticated communication systems. Some insects are solitary. Others live in temporary aggregations or permanent societies. Insect sensory systems are often tuned to detect stimuli humans cannot perceive. Many insects see ultraviolet light. Some detect pheromones at concentrations of a few molecules per cubic meter of air. Mosquitoes sense carbon dioxide, body heat, and certain skin odors, allowing them to locate hosts for blood meals. Bees communicate the location of food sources through waggle dances that encode distance and direction relative to the sun. Metamorphosis, the transformation from larva to adult, is common among insects. In complete metamorphosis, the larva looks nothing like the adult. A caterpillar feeds on leaves, grows, molts several times, then forms a pupa. Inside the pupa, most larval tissues break down and are reorganized into adult structures. Wings, compound eyes, reproductive organs all develop from clusters of cells called imaginal discs that were present but dormant in the larva. After days or weeks, depending on species and temperature, an adult insect emerges. This transformation allows larvae and adults to exploit different resources. and occupy different niches, reducing competition between life stages. It also allows for rapid adaptation. If environmental conditions change, selection can act independently on larval and adult traits, fine-tuning each stage to its particular ecological role. Evolution proceeds through variation, selection, and inheritance. Mutations arise randomly, errors in DNA replication, or damage from radiation or chemicals. Most mutations are neutral or harmful, but occasionally one confers an advantage. In a population of organisms competing for limited resources, individuals carrying beneficial mutations are more likely to survive and reproduce, passing those mutations to their offspring. Over many generations, advantageous traits spread through the population. Harmful traits are weeded out. The population becomes better adapted to its environment. But environments are not static. Climates shift. Predators evolve new hunting strategies. Competitors arrive from elsewhere. Parasites and pathogens constantly evolve to exploit hosts more effectively. Adaptation is an ongoing process, not a destination. No organism is ever perfectly adapted, because the conditions to which it must adapt are always changing. Sexual reproduction accelerates evolution by shuffling genetic variation. When two individuals mate, their offspring inherit a mix of genes from both parents. This recombination creates new combinations of traits in each generation, providing raw material for selection to act upon. Asexual reproduction, by contrast, produces clones. Variation arises only through mutation, a slower process. Why sex evolved remains debated. Reproducing sexually means an individual passes on only half its genes to each offspring, whereas an asexual organism passes on all its genes. This twofold cost of sex seems disadvantageous. Yet sexual reproduction is widespread among eukaryotes, suggesting it confers significant benefits. One hypothesis is that sex helps purge deleterious mutations. Another is that it accelerates adaptation to changing environments, particularly in the context of host-parasite coevolution. Parasites are ubiquitous. Nearly every species is host to multiple parasites, organisms that live on or inside them and extract resources. Parasites can be bacteria, viruses, fungi, protists, worms, arthropods. Some are specialists, infecting only one or a few host species. Others are generalists. Some kill their hosts quickly. Others persist for years, causing chronic disease or subtly manipulating host behavior. The relationship between host and parasite is an evolutionary arms race. Hosts evolve immune defenses. Parasites evolve mechanisms to evade or suppress those defenses. If a host population becomes genetically uniform, parasites can adapt to exploit it efficiently. Sexual reproduction, by maintaining genetic diversity, makes it harder for parasites to specialize on a single host genotype. This may explain why sex persists despite its costs. Immune systems vary widely across the tree of life. Bacteria have restriction enzymes that cut foreign DNA. Plants produce antimicrobial compounds and can trigger localized cell death to isolate infections. Invertebrates have innate immune responses involving phagocytic cells and antimicrobial peptides. Vertebrates add adaptive immunity with lymphocytes that recognize specific pathogens and remember them, providing faster responses upon re-exposure. The vertebrate immune system is extraordinarily complex. It can distinguish self from non-self with remarkable precision, attacking invading pathogens, while usually sparing the body's own tissues. Autoimmune diseases occur when this distinction fails and the immune system targets healthy cells. Allergies occur when the immune system overreacts to harmless substances like pollen or food proteins. Immune responses must be carefully regulated. Too weak a response allows infections to spread. Too strong a response causes tissue damage. Fever, inflammation, and other sickness behaviors are part of the immune response, costly but often beneficial in fighting infection. The drowsiness and malaise that accompany illness may encourage rest, allowing the body to allocate more resources to immune defense. The microbiome, the community of microorganisms living in and on a host, also plays a role in immune function. Gut bacteria help train the immune system, teaching it to tolerate beneficial microbes while remaining vigilant against pathogens. Disrupting the microbiome with antibiotics can have unintended consequences, increasing susceptibility to certain infections or triggering inflammatory conditions. Microbes inhabit nearly every surface of the human body. The skin hosts distinct communities in oily, dry, and moist regions. The mouth, respiratory tract, urogenital tract, and especially the gut harbor dense microbial populations. The colon alone contains trillions of bacterial cells representing hundreds of species. These microbes metabolize dietary fiber, produce vitamins, outcompete pathogens, and communicate with the host cells through chemical signals. The composition of the microbiome varies among individuals and changes over a person's lifetime. Infants acquire their initial microbes during birth and through breastfeeding. Diet, environment, antibiotic use, and other factors shape microbial communities as people age. Certain microbial profiles are associated with health or disease, though causation is often unclear. Does a particular microbiome cause disease? Or does disease alter the microbiome? Microbes also live in soil, water, air, rocks, ice. They inhabit hot springs, acidic lakes, salt flats, deep subsurface environments. Some metabolize sulfur, iron, or manganese. Some produce methane. Some can survive ionizing radiation that would be lethal to multicellular organisms. These extremophiles expand the known boundaries of life, demonstrating that metabolism can function under an astonishing range of conditions. The deep subsurface biosphere, microbes living kilometers below Earth's surface in cracks and pores within rock, may contain more biomass than all surface life combined. These organisms grow slowly, reproducing perhaps once per century or less, sustained by chemical energy from reactions between rock and water. They are among the most isolated ecosystems on the planet, cut off from sunlight and from the rapid turnover of nutrients that characterizes surface environments. Life also exists in Antarctic ice, in boiling acidic springs in the upper atmosphere, in the driest deserts. Wherever liquid water is available, even intermittently, and wherever some source of energy exists, microbes have found a way to persist. This resilience suggests that life, once established, is difficult to eradicate completely. Mass extinctions have occurred multiple times in Earth's history. The fossil record shows 5 major events when a large fraction of species went extinct in a geologically short period. The causes vary. Volcanic eruptions releasing climate-altering gases, asteroid impacts throwing dust into the atmosphere and blocking sunlight, rapid changes in ocean chemistry. Each extinction reshuffled ecosystems, eliminating dominant groups and allowing previously minor lineages to diversify. The most severe extinction, at the end of the Permian period roughly 252 million years ago, eliminated over 90% of marine species and 70% of terrestrial vertebrate species. Recovery took millions of years, but life did recover. The surviving lineages radiated into new forms, filling ecological roles left vacant by the extinct. Mammals, for instance, remained small and relatively inconspicuous during the age of dinosaurs, but diversified rapidly after the dinosaurs' extinction 66 million years ago. That extinction was triggered, at least in part, by an asteroid impact in what is now the Gulf of Mexico. The impact released energy equivalent to billions of nuclear bombs, vaporizing rock and creating a crater over 180 kilometers wide. Debris ejected into the atmosphere blocked sunlight for months or years, causing global cooling and the collapse of photosynthesis-based food webs. Wildfires raged, acid rain fell, ocean chemistry shifted. Non-avian dinosaurs, which had dominated terrestrial ecosystems for over 160 million years, disappeared. So did many marine reptiles, ammonites, and other groups. But some lineages survived: small mammals, birds, crocodilians, turtles, lizards, snakes, many fish, insects, flowering plants. These survivors inherited a world transformed, emptier and quieter, but still capable of supporting life. Birds are the living descendants of theropod dinosaurs. Fossils show a gradual transition from small, feathered, ground-dwelling dinosaurs to early birds with flight-capable wings. Feathers originally evolved for insulation or display, only later being co-opted for flight. The earliest known bird, Archaeopteryx, had teeth, a long bony tail, and clawed wings, a mosaic of reptilian and avian features. Flight has evolved independently in several lineages. Insects, pterosaurs, birds, bats. Each group evolved different anatomical solutions to the challenges of powered flight. Insect wings are extensions of the exoskeleton, moved by muscles inside the body. Pterosaur wings were membranes of skin stretched between elongated finger bones. Bird wings are modified forelimbs with feathers providing lift and thrust. Bat wings are also modified forelimbs, but with membranes of skin stretched between elongated finger bones, similar in structure to pterosaurs despite evolving independently. Convergent evolution, the independent evolution of similar traits in unrelated lineages, is common. Dolphins, ichthyosaurs, and fish all have streamlined bodies and fins, adaptations to swimming. Cacti in the Americas and euphorbs in Africa both have succulent stems and spines, adaptations to arid environments. These similarities arise because different lineages face similar selective pressures and have similar constraints on possible solutions. But evolution is also constrained by history. Birds cannot evolve wheels, even though wheels might be useful, because there is no developmental pathway from existing bird anatomy to a rotating wheel. Evolution works by modifying existing structures, not by designing from scratch. This leads to suboptimal solutions, quirks, and historical baggage. The vertebrate eye, for instance, has photoreceptor cells facing away from incoming light, with nerve fibers bundling in front of the retina and exiting through a blind spot. Cephalopod eyes, which evolved independently, have photoreceptors facing toward light and no blind spot, a more logical design. But vertebrates are stuck with the arrangement their ancestors evolved, even though it is less than ideal. Evolutionary constraints also arise from trade-offs. Traits beneficial in one context may be costly in another. Large body size can deter predators and allow access to resources unavailable to smaller competitors, but it requires more food and slows reproductive rate. Bright coloration can attract mates, but also attract predators. No organism can maximize all desirable traits simultaneously. Evolution produces compromises shaped by the specific challenges and opportunities of an organism's environment. Environments themselves are partly shaped by the organisms living in them. Plants alters soil chemistry, water retention, and light availability. Burrowing animals mix soil layers, preventing overgrazing or overbrowsing. Ecosystem engineers, species whose activities significantly modify physical environments, can create habitats for other species. Beavers build dams, creating ponds and wetlands. Corals build reefs. Trees create forest canopies. Ecosystems are dynamic, their composition and structure shifting over time. Disturbances like storms, fires, or floods create patchy landscapes where different stages of succession coexist. This patchiness promotes diversity by providing habitats for species adapted to different conditions. Early successional species thrive in open, disturbed areas. Late successional species dominate in mature, stable habitats. Succession is not always directional or predictable. Chance events, like which species arrive first or which predators or pathogens are present, can influence the trajectory. Alternative stable states can exist, where ecosystems shift between different configurations depending on initial conditions or disturbance history. A lake might support either clear water with abundant aquatic plants or turbid water dominated by algae, with transitions between states triggered by nutrient inputs or changes in fish populations. Lakes themselves are ecosystems with distinct vertical zones. The epilimnion, the warm surface layer, receives sunlight and hosts most photosynthesis. The hypolimnion, the cold bottom layer, is dark and often oxygen poor. In temperate regions, seasonal temperature changes cause lake turnover, mixing surface and deep water, redistributing nutrients and oxygen. This turnover influences which species can persist. Aquatic ecosystems face unique challenges. Water is denser than air, providing support but also resistance to movement. Light attenuates rapidly with depth, limiting photosynthesis to the upper layers. Dissolved oxygen levels vary with temperature, pressure, and biological activity. Some aquatic organisms extract oxygen from water using gills. Others surface to breathe air. Amphibians straddle aquatic and terrestrial worlds. Most have a biphasic life cycle, with aquatic larvae and terrestrial adults. Larval amphibians, like tadpoles, breathe through gills and feed on algae or detritus. As they mature, they undergo metamorphosis, developing lungs, limbs, and other adult features. Adults return to water to breed, laying eggs that hatch into larvae, continuing the cycle. The transition from water to land was one of the major events in the history of life. Early tetrapods evolved from lobe-finned fish in the Devonian period, roughly 370 million years ago. These fish had fleshy, bone-supported fins that could function as crude limbs, allowing them to move through shallow water or across mud flats. Over time, natural selection favored traits that improved terrestrial locomotion and respiration. Living on land presented new challenges. Air is less buoyant than water, requiring stronger skeletons to support body weight. Skin must prevent water loss. Eggs must be protected from desiccation. Sensory systems tuned to aquatic environments had to adapt to detecting light, sound, and chemicals in air. Reptiles evolved waterproof skin, covered in scales and amniotic eggs with shells and internal membranes that retain moisture, allowing them to reproduce away from water. These innovations freed reptiles from dependence on aquatic habitats and enabled them to diversify across terrestrial environments. Amniotes, the group including reptiles, birds, and mammals, radiated into numerous forms. Some returned to aquatic life, evolving streamlined bodies and flippers, like marine reptiles and whales. Others took to the air. Still others burrowed underground or climbed trees. The diversity of form reflects the diversity of ecological niches available and the flexibility of the vertebrate body plan. Mammals are distinguished by features including hair, mammary glands that produce milk, 3 middle ear bones, and a neocortex region in the brain. Most are warm-blooded, maintaining constant body temperature through metabolic heat production. This allows them to remain active in cold environments, but requires high energy intake. Endothermy, the ability to generate body heat internally, evolved independently in birds and mammals. It may have originated as a byproduct of high metabolic rates associated with active lifestyles, or may have been selected for directly if it conferred advantages in temperature regulation. Maintaining constant body temperature allows enzymes and other proteins to function optimally regardless of external conditions, but it is energetically expensive. Small mammals and birds face particular challenges because they have high surface area relative to volume, losing heat rapidly. Many have thick fur or feathers for insulation. Some enter torpor during cold nights or winter months, lowering body temperature to conserve energy. Hummingbirds, which have extremely high metabolic rates due to hovering flight, can become torpid overnight, reducing their metabolic rate by up to 95%. Energy flows through ecosystems along food chains and food webs. Primary producers, mostly photosynthetic organisms, convert light energy into chemical energy stored in organic molecules. Herbivores consume producers. Carnivores consume herbivores or other carnivores. Decomposers break down dead organic matter, releasing nutrients for reuse by producers. Energy transfer between trophic levels is inefficient. Only about 10% of the energy in one trophic level is typically incorporated into the next. The rest is lost as heat during metabolism or remains in unconsumed or undigested material. This inefficiency limits the number of trophic levels that can be supported. Most ecosystems have no more than 4 or 5 levels. Nutrient cycles, unlike energy flow, are circular. Elements like carbon, nitrogen, and phosphorus cycle through ecosystems, moving between living organisms, soil, water, and atmosphere. Carbon fixed by plants during photosynthesis is passed through food webs, released as carbon dioxide during respiration or decomposition, and refixed by plants. Nitrogen, essential for building proteins and nucleic acids, is converted from atmospheric nitrogen gas into ammonia by nitrogen-fixing bacteria, taken up by plants, passed through food webs, and eventually returned to the atmosphere by denitrifying bacteria. Phosphorus does not have a significant atmospheric reservoir. It cycles more slowly, released from weathering rock, absorbed by organisms, and eventually deposited in sediments. Over geological timescales, sedimentary rocks containing phosphorus are uplifted and weathered, releasing phosphorus back into circulation. Human activities have dramatically altered nutrient cycles. Industrial nitrogen fixation for fertilizer production has doubled the rate at which nitrogen is converted from atmospheric gas to reactive forms. Burning fossil fuels releases carbon that was sequestered underground for millions of years. Mining phosphorus for fertilizer accelerates its movement from rock to ecosystems. These alterations have consequences. Excess nitrogen and phosphorus run off from agricultural fields into rivers, lakes, and coastal waters, causing algal blooms. When algae die and decompose, oxygen is consumed, creating hypoxic zones where most animals cannot survive. Coastal dead zones have expanded in many parts of the world. Increased atmospheric carbon dioxide contributes to climate warming by enhancing the greenhouse effect. Carbon dioxide absorbs infrared radiation emitted by Earth's surface, trapping heat in the lower atmosphere. Higher carbon dioxide concentrations strengthen this effect, raising global temperatures. Oceans absorb much of the excess carbon dioxide, which reacts with water to form carbonic acid, lowering ocean pH in a process called ocean acidification. This makes it harder for organisms like corals and shellfish to build calcium carbonate structures. Ecosystems respond to climate change in complex ways. Some species shift their ranges poleward or to higher elevations, tracking suitable temperatures. Others change the timing of life cycle events, like flowering, migration, or hibernation. Some adapt through natural selection if genetic variation for climate-relevant traits exists, and if populations can evolve quickly enough. But many species cannot move, adapt, or tolerate new conditions fast enough. Habitat fragmentation impedes range shifts. Specialized species with narrow niches are particularly vulnerable. Extinction rates are elevated, though predicting which species will go extinct and which will persist is difficult. Paleontological and ecological data suggest that Earth's biodiversity is currently undergoing a sixth mass extinction, driven primarily by human activities. Habitat destruction, overexploitation, pollution, climate change, and introduction of invasive species all contribute. Unlike previous mass extinctions caused by asteroid impacts or massive volcanic eruptions, this one is driven by a single species altering the planet at an unprecedented pace. Yet life has recovered from past mass extinctions, and it will likely recover from this one, though recovery may take millions of years, and the resulting ecosystems will differ profoundly from those that existed before. Evolution does not have foresight or purpose. It simply responds to whatever conditions prevail, generating diversity wherever opportunities exist. The deep history of life is written in rocks, fossils preserving traces of ancient organisms. Soft tissues rarely fossilize, but hard parts like shells, bones, and teeth can be preserved if buried quickly in sediment. Over time, minerals replace organic material, or the organic material leaves an impression in surrounding rock. Fossils provide a fragmentary but invaluable record of how life has changed. The oldest fossils, stromatolites formed by cyanobacteria, date back over 3 billion years. For most of Earth's history, life consisted of single-celled organisms. Multicellular life appears in the fossil record roughly 600 million years ago. The Cambrian explosion, a period of rapid diversification beginning about 540 million years ago, saw the origin of most major animal body plans. The fossil record shows that most species eventually go extinct. The average lifespan of a species, from origination to extinction, varies but is typically 1 to 10 million years. A few species persist much longer, essentially unchanged, called living fossils. Horseshoe crabs, coelacanths, and ginkgo trees resemble their ancient relatives closely, having changed little over hundreds of millions of years. Why some lineages remain stable while others diversify rapidly is not fully understood. Stable environments may favor conservatism. Highly specialized adaptations may constrain future evolution. Or perhaps some body plans are simply robust and versatile enough to remain successful across changing conditions. Time itself is difficult to grasp at geological scales. A million years is an abstraction, far beyond human experience. Yet such spans are routine in evolutionary and geological processes. Mountain ranges rise and erode, continents drift, oceans open and close. Life adapts, diversifies, goes extinct, and is replaced. The movement of continents, driven by plate tectonics, reshapes the surface of the planet over tens of millions of years. Earth's lithosphere is broken into large plates that float on the semi-molten asthenosphere below. Convection currents in the mantle push and pull these plates, causing them to collide, slide past one another, or move apart. Where plates diverge, new crust forms as magma wells up from below. Mid-ocean ridges mark these spreading zones, underwater mountain ranges stretching for thousands of kilometers. Iceland sits atop the mid-Atlantic ridge, one of the few places where a divergent boundary emerges above sea level. Volcanic activity is common there, as is geothermal heating, energy tapped from the heat of Earth's interior. Where plates converge, one may slide beneath the other in a process called subduction. The descending plate melts as it sinks into the mantle, and the magma rises to form volcanic arcs. The ring of fire, encircling the Pacific Ocean, marks subduction zones where oceanic plates plunge beneath continental or other oceanic plates. Earthquakes and volcanic eruptions are frequent along these boundaries. When continental plates collide, neither subducts easily because continental crust is too buoyant. Instead, the crust crumples and thickens, forming mountain ranges. The Himalayas rose from the collision of the Indian and Eurasian plates, a process that began roughly 50 million years ago and continues today. The mountains are still rising, though erosion wears them down simultaneously. Mountains influence climate by forcing air masses to rise, cooling and releasing moisture as precipitation on windward slopes. Leeward slopes receive less rain, creating rain shadows and arid conditions. The positioning of mountain ranges affects global wind patterns, ocean currents, and the distribution of ecosystems. Oceans also influence climate profoundly. Water water has a high heat capacity, absorbing and releasing heat slowly compared to land. Coastal regions experience milder temperature fluctuations than inland areas at the same latitude. Ocean currents transport heat from equatorial regions toward the poles, moderating global temperature gradients. The Gulf Stream, for instance, carries warm water from the Gulf of Mexico along the east coast of North America and across the Atlantic toward Europe. This current helps keep northwestern Europe warmer than other regions at similar latitudes. If the current were to weaken or shift, regional climates could change dramatically. Ocean currents are driven by wind, Earth's rotation, and differences in water density caused by temperature and salinity variations. Deep ocean currents, part of the global thermohaline circulation, move slowly, taking centuries to complete a full cycle. Water sinks in polar regions where it becomes cold and dense, flows along the ocean floor toward the equator, gradually warms, rises, and returns poleward near the surface. This circulation redistributes heat, nutrients, and dissolved gases. Upwelling zones, where deep water rises to the surface, bring nutrients from the ocean floor to sunlit surface waters, supporting high biological productivity. Many of the world's richest fisheries are located in upwelling regions. Fish populations fluctuate in response to environmental variability, fishing pressure, and ecological interactions. Overfishing has depleted many stocks, reducing population sizes below levels that can sustain historical catch rates. Some species have collapsed entirely, ecosystems reorganizing in their absence. Removing top predators can trigger trophic cascades, where effects ripple through multiple levels of a food web. Overfishing of sharks, for example, can lead to increases in smaller predatory fish, which in turn overconsume herbivorous fish, allowing algae to proliferate and degrading coral reefs. The loss of a single species can destabilize an entire ecosystem. Reintroducing lost species sometimes restores ecosystem function. Wolves reintroduced to Yellowstone National Park reduced elk populations and altered their behavior, leading to recovery of vegetation along streams, stabilization of riverbanks, and increased habitat for other species. The presence of a top predator reshaped the landscape. Predation is a powerful selective force. Prey evolved defenses, camouflage, warning coloration, armor, toxins, behavioral strategies. Predators evolve counter-adaptations, better sensory systems, faster speed, cooperative hunting. The interaction drives ongoing evolutionary change in both parties. Some prey species employ chemical defenses, producing toxins that deter predators. Poison dart frogs sequester alkaloids from the insects they eat, concentrating the toxins in their skin. Bright coloration advertises their toxicity, warning potential predators to avoid them. Predators that ignore the warning and attempt to eat the frog suffer illness or death, reinforcing the association between bright color and danger. Mimicry, where one species resembles another, exploits these learned associations. Batesian mimicry occurs when a harmless species evolves to resemble a toxic or dangerous one, gaining protection without paying the cost of producing toxins. Malarian mimicry occurs when multiple toxic species converge on similar warning coloration, sharing the cost of educating predators. Mimicry is not limited to visual signals. Some harmless snakes mimic the rattle of rattlesnakes, by vibrating their tails in dry leaves. Some insects mimic the sounds or smells of other species. Orchids mimic the appearance and scent of female insects, attracting male insects that attempt to mate with the flowers, inadvertently pollinating them in the process. Deception is widespread in nature. Anglerfish dangle bioluminescent lures to attract prey. Fireflies mimic the flash patterns of other species to lure and consume rivals. Cuckoo birds lay eggs in the nests of other species, which raise the cuckoo chicks as their own, often at the expense of their own offspring. These strategies evolve because they increase reproductive success, the ultimate currency of natural selection. Organisms that produce more surviving offspring pass on their genes at higher rates. Traits that enhance reproduction, directly or indirectly, tend to spread. Sexual selection, a form of natural selection, acts on traits that influence mating success rather than survival. Males of many species compete for access to females, leading to evolution of weapons like antlers or horns, displays like bright plumage or elaborate courtship dances, or behaviors like territoriality and aggression. Females often choose mates based on specific traits, and their preferences shaped the evolution of male characteristics. Why females prefer certain traits is debated. Some preferences may indicate male quality, such as health, genetic fitness, or ability to provide resources. Other preferences may be arbitrary, driven by sensory biases or runaway sexual selection, where traits and preferences co-evolve in a positive feedback loop. In some species, sex roles are reversed. Female pipefish and seahorses transfer eggs to males, who carry them in brood pouches. Males become the limiting resource, and females compete for access to them. Bright coloration and aggressive behavior in these species are more pronounced in females than males. Mating systems vary widely. Some species are monogamous, with pairs bonding for a breeding season or for life. Others are polygynous, with males mating with multiple females. Still others are polyandrous, with females mating with multiple males. Promiscuity, where both sexes mate with multiple partners, is also common. The mating system influences parental care patterns. In species where males provide little care, females often invest heavily in offspring, producing fewer, larger eggs, or giving birth to well-developed young. In species where males help raise offspring, parental investment may be more evenly distributed, and sexual dimorphism in size or ornamentation is often reduced. Parental care itself varies. Some species provide no care, simply releasing eggs or young into the environment. Others guard eggs, provision larvae, or carry young. Mammals are defined in part by lactation, a form of parental care where mothers produce milk to nourish offspring. Milk composition varies among species, tailored to the nutritional needs and developmental rate of the young. Human milk, for instance, is relatively low in protein and fat compared to that of seals or rabbits, whose young grow rapidly. Human infants develop slowly, requiring prolonged parental investment. This extended childhood may facilitate learning and brain development, allowing humans to acquire complex skills and cultural knowledge. Culture, socially transmitted information that influences behavior, exists in many species besides humans. Chimpanzees in different populations use different tool types and techniques, traditions passed from generation to generation through observation and imitation. Songbirds learn their songs from tutors, often their fathers, and regional dialects emerge. Whales and dolphins have vocal traditions, signature whistles, and calls that vary among pods. Cultural transmission allows populations to adapt to local conditions more rapidly than genetic evolution alone. If an individual discovers a new food source or tool use, others can learn it without waiting for mutations to arise and spread. Culture can also lead to maladaptive traditions if conditions change and outdated behaviors persist. The interplay between genetic and cultural evolution is complex. Genes influence the capacity for culture, such as learning ability or social tendencies. Culture influences which genes are favored by selection. In humans, the ability to digest lactose into adulthood evolved in populations with traditions of dairy farming. A clear case of gene-culture coevolution. Language, a uniquely human trait in its complexity, enables transmission of information far beyond what other species can achieve. Humans can communicate about abstract concepts, past and future events, hypothetical scenarios. Language allows accumulation of knowledge across generations, building on what predecessors learned rather than starting anew each generation. Written language extends this further, allowing information to be stored outside individual minds and transmitted across space and time. The invention of writing roughly 5,000 years ago marked a major transition in human history, enabling development of complex societies, record-keeping and preservation of knowledge. Technology, another form of cultural information, has transformed human ecology. Agriculture increased food production, supporting larger, denser populations. Domestication of animals provided labor, transportation, and additional food sources. Metalworking, pottery, textile production, all expanded the range of tools and materials available. Industrial technology, beginning a few centuries ago, accelerated the pace of change. Fossil fuels provided concentrated energy sources, powering machines that vastly increased productivity. This energy subsidy allowed human populations to grow exponentially and to alter landscapes on a global scale. The consequences are profound and mixed. Life expectancy has increased. Infant mortality has declined. Material standards of living have risen in many parts of the world. But resource extraction, pollution, habitat destruction, and climate change pose challenges to both human societies and natural ecosystems. Humans are not separate from the ecological and evolutionary processes that shape all life. Population growth follows logistic patterns similar to those of other species, limited by resource availability and environmental constraints. Human impacts on ecosystems mirror those of other ecosystem engineers, though at an unprecedented scale and pace. Whether human societies can transition to more sustainable practices, reducing environmental impacts while maintaining well-being, remains uncertain. History provides no clear precedent. Past societies that overexploited resources or degraded environments often collapsed or were forced to migrate. But past societies lacked global communication, scientific understanding, or technologies for renewable energy and resource management. The planet continues its ancient cycles regardless of human actions. Tides rise and fall. Seasons turn. Weather patterns shift. Organisms are born, grow, reproduce, die. Energy flows from sun to producers to consumers to decomposers. and ultimately radiates back into space as heat. Materials cycle through ecosystems, atmosphere, oceans, rocks. Volcanoes erupt, releasing gases and ash that can cool the climate temporarily by reflecting sunlight. Weathering of rock consumes atmospheric carbon dioxide over millions of years, slowly drawing down concentrations. Subduction carries carbon-rich sediments into the mantle, where it is eventually recycled back to the surface through volcanic activity. These slow geological processes regulate Earth's climate over deep time, preventing runaway greenhouse or icehouse conditions. Feedback stabilize the system within bounds compatible with liquid water and life. If temperatures rise, weathering accelerates, drawing down carbon dioxide. If temperatures fall, weathering slows, allowing volcanic emissions to build up carbon dioxide and warm the climate again. Life itself participates in these feedbacks. Photosynthetic organisms remove carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. Respiration and decomposition return it. Burial of organic matter in sediments represents long-term carbon storage, effectively removing it from active cycling. Fossil fuels, coal, oil, and natural gas are the remains of ancient organisms buried and transformed over millions of years. Burning fossil fuels releases this stored carbon rapidly, on timescales of decades to centuries rather than millions of years. The rate of release exceeds the rate at which natural processes can remove carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, leading to accumulation and climate warming. Oceans absorb some of the excess, but their capacity is limited and the absorption causes acidification. Marine organisms that build calcium carbonate shells or skeletons, including corals, mollusks, and some plankton, struggle in acidified water. Carbonate ion concentrations decrease as pH drops, making it harder to precipitate calcium carbonate. Existing structures can begin to dissolve. Coral reefs, already stressed by warming temperatures and pollution, face additional pressure from ocean acidification. Coral bleaching occurs when corals expel the symbiotic algae that provide them with energy through photosynthesis. The algae, called zooxanthellae, live inside coral tissue and give corals their color. When stressed by high temperatures or other factors, corals eject the algae, turning white. Bleached corals are not immediately dead but are weakened and more susceptible to disease. If conditions improve, zooxanthellae can recolonize and corals recover. If stress persists, corals starve and die. Reefs support extraordinary biodiversity, providing habitat and food for countless species. They protect coastlines from erosion, buffer storm surges, and support fisheries. Degradation of reefs has cascading effects on marine ecosystems and human communities that depend on them. Restoration efforts attempt to rebuild damaged reefs by transplanting corals, creating artificial substrates, or reducing local stressors like pollution and overfishing. Success is mixed and depends on addressing the underlying drivers of reef decline, particularly climate change. Ecosystems are resilient to some degree, capable of absorbing disturbances and recovering. But resilience has limits. Beyond certain thresholds, ecosystems can shift to alternative states that are difficult or impossible to reverse. A forest converted to grassland may not return to forest even if the disturbance ceases, because altered soil conditions or lack of seed sources prevent tree establishment. Understanding these thresholds and tipping points is critical for managing ecosystems. and predicting their responses to ongoing changes. Models help, but ecosystems are complex and influenced by myriad interacting factors, many poorly understood. Uncertainty is inherent. Ecological research proceeds through observation, experimentation, and modeling. Field studies document patterns in nature. Experiments manipulate variables to test hypotheses about causal relationships. Models integrate data and theory to make predictions. Long-term ecological studies, tracking ecosystems over decades, reveal dynamics invisible in short-term observations. Populations fluctuate in response to weather, predation, disease, competition. Some fluctuations are regular, driven by seasonal or multi-year cycles. Others are irregular, triggered by rare events or chaotic dynamics. Chaos, in the mathematical sense, describes systems highly sensitive to initial conditions. Small differences in starting states can lead to vastly different outcomes over time, making long-term prediction impossible, even if the underlying rules are deterministic. Weather is a classic chaotic system. Ecological systems can also exhibit chaotic behavior, complicating efforts to forecast population dynamics or ecosystem responses. Despite uncertainty, patterns emerge. Energy flows from sun to organisms and dissipates as heat. Nutrients cycle through ecosystems. Species interact through competition, predation, mutualism, parasitism. Disturbances create opportunities for succession. Evolution shapes organisms to fit their environments. These principles hold across diverse ecosystems. Rainforests and tundras, coral reefs and deserts, rivers and grasslands. The specific species differ, the details vary, but the underlying processes are universal. Grasslands, for instance, are dominated by grasses and other herbaceous plants, rather than trees. They develop where rainfall is insufficient to support forests, or where fire or grazing prevents tree establishment. Grasses have growing points near the base of the plant, allowing them to regrow quickly after being eaten or burned. Trees with growing points at branch tips are more vulnerable to such disturbances. Large herbivores like bison, wildebeest, and kangaroos graze grasslands, consuming vast quantities of plant material. Their grazing can actually stimulate plant growth by removing old, less productive tissue and returning nutrients to the soil in dung and urine. But heavy grazing can also degrade grasslands, reducing plant cover and leading to erosion. Predators regulate herbivore populations, preventing overgrazing. In the absence of predators, herbivore populations can grow unchecked until they exhaust food supplies, leading to starvation and population crashes. Reintroducing predators or managing herbivore numbers through hunting can help maintain ecosystem balance. Fire is a natural component of many grasslands and some forests. Plants in fire-prone ecosystems often have adaptations like thick bark, resprouting ability, or seeds that germinate after fire. Fire clears dead vegetation, recycles nutrients, and resets succession, maintaining open habitats preferred by certain species. Suppressing fire, a common management practice in many regions, can lead to accumulation of fuel and more intense fires when they eventually occur. It can also allow woody plants to encroach on grasslands, altering ecosystem structure and function. Controlled burns, deliberately set under carefully managed conditions, are used to mimic natural fire regimes and maintain ecosystem health. Deserts receive very little rainfall, often less than 25 centimeters per year. Water availability, not temperature, is the primary limiting factor for life. Desert organisms have evolved remarkable adaptations to conserve water and tolerate heat. Cacti store water in thick, fleshy stems and minimize water loss by conducting photosynthesis with stomata that open only at night. Succulents and other plant families have evolved similar traits through convergent evolution. Many desert animals are nocturnal, avoiding daytime heat and reducing water loss. Some obtain all the water they need from their food, never drinking. Seeds of desert plants can remain dormant for years, germinating only after rare, heavy rains. When conditions are right, deserts bloom briefly, carpeted with flowers that complete their life cycles quickly before water disappears again. Pollinators and herbivores take advantage of this temporary abundance, and the desert returns to dormancy. Polar regions, though cold rather than dry, face similar challenges regarding water availability. Water is frozen and unavailable for biological use much of the year. Organisms living in polar regions must tolerate extreme cold, long periods of darkness, and short growing seasons. Arctic tundra supports low-growing plants, mosses, lichens, and shrubs. Permafrost, permanently frozen soil, underlies the surface, preventing deep root growth. During brief summer months, the surface layer thaws, and plants grow rapidly, taking advantage of nearly continuous daylight. Migratory birds arrive to breed, feasting on abundant insects and plants. Caribou and reindeer move across the tundra in large herds, following vegetation as it greens up. Predators like wolves and Arctic foxes hunt the herbivores. When winter returns, migrants leave and residents endure months of cold and darkness. Antarctica is even more extreme, colder and drier, with almost no terrestrial vegetation except along the coast and on the Antarctic Peninsula. Life is concentrated in the surrounding ocean, where nutrients upwelling from the deep support rich plankton blooms. Krill, small shrimp-like crustaceans, feed on phytoplankton and in turn support fish, seals, penguins, and whales. Penguins are flightless birds adapted to aquatic life, using their wings as flippers to swim. They come ashore to breed, forming colonies that can number in the hundreds of thousands. Adults take turns incubating eggs and foraging at sea, sometimes traveling hundreds of kilometers to find food. Emperor penguins breed during the Antarctic winter, enduring months of darkness and temperatures below -40 degrees Celsius. Males incubate eggs on their feet, tucked under a fold of skin, while females return to the sea to feed. Males fast for over 2 months, huddling together for warmth, until females return and take over chick-rearing duties. The ability of emperor penguins to survive such conditions demonstrates the extremes life can tolerate. Adaptations include dense plumage, layers of insulating fat, countercurrent heat exchange in flippers and legs to minimize heat loss, and social behaviors like huddling that reduce individual energy expenditure. Life's persistence in extreme environments suggests that it might exist elsewhere in the universe under conditions very different from those on Earth's surface. Moons like Europa and Enceladus have subsurface oceans beneath thick ice shells, possibly warmed by tidal heating. If those oceans contain chemical energy sources, life might have originated independently there. Searching for extraterrestrial life focuses on detecting biosignatures, signs that could only be produced by living organisms. These might include specific atmospheric gases, like oxygen and methane in disequilibrium, or surface features like vegetation or microbial mats. Finding life elsewhere would profoundly reshape understanding of biology, suggesting that life arises readily wherever conditions permit, or finding none might suggest that life is rare and precious. Here on Earth, life has persisted for over 3.5 billion years, adapting to changing conditions, surviving catastrophes, diversifying into millions of forms. The mechanisms of evolution, the structure of ecosystems, the flow of energy and nutrients, all continue whether observed or not, vast and intricate processes unfolding across scales from molecules to the entire biosphere. That thin layer of life coating the planet's surface like a film of moisture on a stone. Within that biosphere, each organism is a temporary arrangement of matter and energy, assembled according to instructions encoded in nucleic acids, maintained through continuous metabolic work, and eventually disassembled when death returns its constituent atoms to circulation. Carbon, nitrogen, hydrogen, phosphorus, sulfur, and trace elements flow through bodies and back into soil, water, air. The atoms in a human body, in a tree, in a bacterium, have cycled through countless other organisms over billions of years. Some atoms have been part of the ocean, then part of a diatom, consumed by a copepod, eaten by a fish, excreted, sunk to the seafloor, buried in sediment, transformed into rock, uplifted into mountains, weathered into soil, absorbed by roots, built into leaves, fallen to the ground, decomposed, washed into a sea again. The journey of a single carbon atom might span the entire planet and billions of years, participating in chemical reactions too numerous to count, briefly residing in living tissue, then moving on. The continuity of life depends not on any individual organism, but on the unbroken transmission of genetic information from generation to generation. DNA molecules in cells today are copies of copies of copies, extending back to the origin of life. Each replication introduces occasional errors, mutations that create variation. Most mutations are neutral or deleterious, but rare beneficial mutations accumulate over time, gradually reshaping genomes and enabling adaptation to new challenges. Horizontal gene transfer, the movement of genetic material between organisms outside of reproduction, also contributes to genetic diversity, especially in microbes. Bacteria can exchange plasmids, small circular DNA molecules, acquiring resistance to antibiotics or new metabolic capabilities in a single generation. Viruses can pick up host genes and transfer them to new hosts. Some genes in eukaryotic genomes originated from bacteria that became symbionts billions of years ago. Their descendants, now mitochondria and chloroplasts, mitochondria, present in nearly all eukaryotic cells, generate most of the ATP that powers cellular processes. They retain their own small genomes, separate from the nuclear genome, evidence of their origin as free-living bacteria that entered into symbiosis with an ancestral eukaryotic cell. Chloroplasts, found in plants and algae, perform photosynthesis and also also originated from symbiotic bacteria, specifically cyanobacteria. These endosymbiotic events, rare and dramatic, fundamentally altered the trajectory of evolution, enabling the emergence of complex multicellular organisms. Without mitochondria, eukaryotes could not support the energetic demands of large, active cells. Without chloroplasts, photosynthetic eukaryotes could not have diversified into the myriad forms of algae and land plants that now dominate primary production in many ecosystems. Multicellularity itself evolved independently many times in animals, plants, fungi, and various protist lineages. It allows division of labor among cells, with specialized cell types performing specific functions more efficiently than generalist cells could. Multicellular organisms can grow larger, exploit new resources, and develop complex structures like organs and tissues. But multicellularity introduces challenges. Cells must communicate and coordinate their activities. Cell division must be regulated to prevent cancer, the uncontrolled proliferation of cells that can destroy the organism. Mechanisms evolved to maintain cooperation among cells, suppressing cheaters that might replicate at the expense of the whole. In animals, development from a single fertilized egg to a mature organism involves intricate choreography of cell division, differentiation, and morphogenesis. Genes are turned on and off in precise temporal and spatial patterns, guided by regulatory networks involving transcription factors, signaling molecules, and epigenetic modifications. The same genome in every cell produces hundreds of different cell types through differential gene expression. Understanding development requires understanding how genes interact, how cells respond to signals from their environment, how tissues organize themselves into functional structures. Developmental biology has revealed remarkable conservation of developmental mechanisms across distantly related organisms, the same genes involved in building eyes in flies and mammals, despite their very different structures, suggesting deep homology dating back to a common ancestor. Regeneration, the ability to regrow lost body parts, varies widely among organisms. Some flatworms can regenerate an entire body from small fragments. Salamanders can regrow limbs, tails, even portions of heart or brain. Mammals have limited regenerative capacity. The livers can regrow to full size after partial removal, and some tissues like skin and intestinal lining continuously replace themselves. Why regenerative ability is lost in some lineages is unclear. It may be costly to maintain the stem cell populations and regulatory mechanisms required for regeneration. Or it may be that developmental programs become canalized, locked into specific pathways that make regeneration difficult. Understanding the genetic and cellular basis of regeneration might eventually enable therapeutic applications, stimulating regrowth of damaged human tissues or organs. Aging, the progressive decline in function and increased vulnerability to disease and death, is another fundamental biological process. All organisms age, though at vastly different rates. Some species live only days or weeks. Others survive for centuries. Bristlecone pine trees can live over 5,000 years. Certain jellyfish appear capable of reversing aging, returning to earlier life stages when injured or stressed. Theories of aging propose various mechanisms. Accumulated damage to DNA, proteins, and other cellular components may gradually impair function. Telomeres, protective caps on chromosome ends, shorten with each cell division in many cell types, eventually triggering senescence or death. Trade-offs between reproduction and maintenance may lead evolution to favor early fertility at the expense of longevity, since individuals that reproduce successfully early pass on their genes, even if they deteriorate later. Interventions that extend lifespan in laboratory organisms include dietary restriction, genetic manipulations affecting insulin signaling or cellular stress responses, and compounds that mimic some effects of these interventions. Whether similar interventions could extend healthy human lifespan remains an active area of research, with implications for understanding both the biology of aging and the potential for medical interventions. But lifespan, however long, always ends. Death is universal among multicellular organisms, though the manner and timing vary. Some species die after reproducing once, their bodies programmed to senesce rapidly following reproduction. Salmon swim upstream, spawn, and die, their bodies providing nutrients to the stream ecosystem. Bamboo flowers once in its lifetime, sometimes after decades of growth, then dies. Other species reproduce multiple times over extended lifespans. Trees can produce seeds for centuries. Whales can bear calves over decades. The evolutionary logic depends on how reproductive success changes with age, and how survival and reproduction trade off against each other. Death serves ecological functions. It recycles nutrients. It creates space and resources for new individuals. It removes older, possibly less fit individuals from the population. Scavengers and decomposers depend on dead organic matter for sustenance. Without death, ecosystems would stagnate, nutrients locked in living tissue. Populations unable to turn over and adapt. Decomposition proceeds through predictable stages. Shortly after death, autolysis begins as cells break down and release enzymes. Bacteria from the gut and environment colonize the body, breaking down tissues and producing gases and odors. Insects arrive, laying eggs that hatch into larvae that consume soft tissue. Microbes continue working, reducing organic matter to simpler compounds. Eventually, only bones or other resistant structures remain, and even these slowly weather and disintegrate. Minerals returning to soil. Fossilization is rare, requiring specific conditions where burial in sediment occurs quickly enough to prevent complete decomposition, and where minerals gradually replace organic material. The vast majority of organisms that have ever lived left no fossils. The fossil record is a sparse sampling, biased toward organisms with hard parts, living in environments conducive to preservation, and whose fossils happen to be exposed and discovered. Despite its limitations, the fossil record documents the history of life, the appearance of major groups, the diversification and extinction of lineages, changes in body plans and ecosystem structure, transitional fossils, showing intermediate characteristics between ancestral and descendant groups, provide evidence of evolutionary change. Fossils of early whales with legs, fossils of feathered dinosaurs, fossils of fish with limb-like fins, all illustrate the gradual modifications that connect seemingly disparate forms. Molecular data complement the fossil record, providing independent lines of evidence for evolutionary relationships. DNA and protein sequences accumulate changes over time, mutations that are mostly neutral and accumulate at roughly constant rates. By comparing sequences among species, biologists can estimate how long ago lineages diverged, constructing phylogenetic trees that map evolutionary relationships. Some relationships revealed by molecular data surprised biologists accustomed to classification based on morphology. Whales, for instance, are more closely related to hippos than to other large marine animals. Birds are nested within dinosaurs, not a separate group. Fungi are more closely related to animals than to plants. These findings reflect the fact that evolution works by descent with modification. All organisms share a common ancestor, and the patterns of similarity and difference among them reflect branching patterns in the tree of life. Closely related species share more recent common ancestors and thus share more similarities. Distantly related species share more ancient common ancestors and have had more time to diverge. Phylogenies also reveal patterns of convergent evolution, where similar traits evolved independently in different lineages. Flight evolved separately in insects, pterosaurs, birds, and bats. Eyes evolved independently in many lineages, with different structural solutions but similar functions. Bioluminescence evolved dozens of times, using different biochemical pathways in different groups. Convergence illustrates that evolution is not random. Natural selection favors solutions that work, and there are often only a limited number of ways to solve a particular problem given the constraints of physics, chemistry, and available genetic variation. Wings must be light and strong to enable flight. Eyes must focus light and detect it to form images. The details differ, but the general solutions converge. Yet evolution is also contingent, shaped by historical accidents and unique circumstances. If the asteroid had not struck 66 million years ago, dinosaurs might still dominate terrestrial ecosystems, and mammals might remain small and nocturnal. If certain mutations had not occurred, if certain environmental changes had not happened, the present biota would look entirely different. Replaying the tape of evolution. As paleontologist Stephen Jay Gould phrased it, would not produce the same outcomes. Chance plays too large a role, from mutations to which lineages survive mass extinctions, to which populations happen to be in the right place at the right time to exploit new opportunities. The diversity of life is as much a product of history and contingency as of law-like processes. This historical contingency makes prediction difficult. Evolutionary biologists can explain why traits evolved, understanding the selective pressures and constraints that shape them. But predicting what will evolve in the future is another matter entirely. The future depends on which mutations arise, which environmental changes occur, which species interact in novel ways. Ecology faces similar challenges. Ecosystems are complex adaptive systems, composed of many interacting components whose behaviors change in response to each other and to external conditions. Small changes can have large effects if they push the system across a threshold. Feedback loops can amplify or dampen disturbances. Predicting ecosystem responses to climate change, invasive species, or other perturbations requires understanding not just individual species but the web of interactions among them. Despite uncertainty, ecological and evolutionary theory provide frameworks for understanding patterns and processes. They allow hypotheses to be formulated, tested, refined. They connect observations across scales, from molecular to global. They reveal the unity underlying the diversity of life, the shared ancestry, the common mechanisms, the universal principles. These principles operate continuously. Right now, somewhere, a seed is germinating, roots pushing down into soil, a shoot reaching toward light. A larva is molting, shedding its old exoskeleton, vulnerable until the new one hardens. A predator is stalking prey, muscles tensed, senses focused. A cell is dividing, chromosomes separating, cytoplasm pinching in two. A river is carrying sediment toward the sea, particles settling in deltas, slowly building new land. A glacier is flowing, ice crystals deforming under pressure, carving valleys into bedrock. The planet rotates, day giving way to night, night to day. The moon orbits, pulling tides that rise and fall along coastlines. The sun fuses hydrogen into helium, releasing energy that radiates into space, a tiny fraction intercepted by Earth, warming the surface, driving winds and ocean currents, powering photosynthesis. Photosynthesis converts light into chemical energy, splitting water molecules, releasing oxygen, fixing carbon dioxide into sugars. Those sugars fuel the metabolisms of plants and the organisms that consume them. Energy flows through food webs, degraded at each step, ultimately dissipating as heat. Entropy increases, order maintained locally only through continuous input of energy from the sun. This flow of energy, this cycling of matter, has continued for billions of years and will continue for billions more, until the sun exhausts its hydrogen fuel and swells into a red giant, engulfing the inner planets. But that lies unimaginably far in the future. For now, the sun shines steadily, energy pours onto Earth's surface, and life persists, adapting, evolving, diversifying. The atmosphere, thin and fragile, contains the gases organisms need. Nitrogen, mostly inert, makes up 78%. Oxygen, produced by photosynthesis, comprises 21%. Argon, carbon dioxide, water vapor, and trace gases make up the remainder. This composition is far from chemical equilibrium, maintained only by the continuous activity of living organisms. Without life, oxygen would react with reduced compounds in rocks and atmosphere, disappearing over geological time. Carbon dioxide levels would rise from volcanic emissions. The atmosphere would resemble that of Venus or Mars, dominated by carbon dioxide with little or no oxygen. Earth's atmosphere is a signature of life, a product of billions of years of biological activity. Water, essential for all known life, exists in all three phases on Earth's surface: solid ice, liquid water, gaseous vapor. It cycles through atmosphere, oceans, lakes, rivers, glaciers, groundwater, and living organisms. Evaporation from oceans and other water bodies lifts water into the atmosphere. Condensation forms clouds. Precipitation returns water to the surface. Some soaks into soil, taken up by plants or percolating into aquifers. Some runs off into streams and rivers, flowing back to the sea. The water cycle, like the carbon and nitrogen cycles, is driven by energy from the sun and influenced by biological activity. Plants transpire water, releasing vapor from leaves. Forests affect local and regional rainfall patterns. Wetlands filter water, removing pollutants and sediments. Aquatic organisms depend on the chemical and physical properties of water, which dissolve nutrients, transport heat, and provide buoyancy. Ice, when it forms, can lock water away for thousands or millions of years in glaciers and ice sheets. During ice ice ages, so much water is stored in ice that sea levels drop by over 100 meters, exposing continental shelves and connecting land masses that are now separated by ocean. When ice melts, sea levels rise, flooding low-lying areas, reshaping coastlines, altering ecosystems. Sea level has fluctuated throughout Earth's history, driven by ice volume, thermal expansion of warming water, and changes in ocean basin volume as tectonic plates shift. Coastal ecosystems, including mangroves, salt marshes, and coral reefs, are sensitive to sea level changes, able to adapt to gradual shifts but vulnerable to rapid ones. Mangroves, salt-tolerant trees and shrubs, growing in intertidal zones in tropical and subtropical regions, provide critical habitat for fish, crustaceans, and birds. Their roots stabilize sediments, reducing erosion, and they trap organic matter, building soil. Mangrove forests buffer coastlines from storm surges, absorbing wave energy. They also sequester carbon, storing it in biomass and sediments. Salt marshes perform similar functions in temperate regions, dominated by grasses and other herbaceous plants, adapted to periodic flooding by saltwater. Both mangroves and salt marshes are threatened by development, pollution, and sea level rise, leading to loss of habitat and the ecosystem services they provide. Ecosystem services. The benefits humans derive from ecosystems include provisioning services like food, water, and raw materials, regulating services like climate regulation and water purification, supporting services like nutrient cycling and soil formation, and cultural services like recreation and spiritual value. Quantifying these services and incorporating them into decision-making remains challenging, but increasingly recognized as important for sustainable management. Sustainability, broadly defined as meeting current needs, without compromising the ability of future generations to meet theirs, requires balancing economic, social, and environmental considerations. It involves managing resources to avoid depletion, minimizing pollution and waste, maintaining biodiversity and ecosystem function, and ensuring equitable distribution of benefits and burdens. Achieving sustainability is complicated by uncertainties about ecological thresholds, lags between actions and consequences, and conflicts among stakeholders with different values and priorities. What is sustainable depends on time scale, spatial scale, and what is being sustained. Sustaining current levels of resource consumption may not be feasible or desirable. Sustaining ecosystem function may require reducing human impacts. These questions intersect with ethics, economics, politics, and science. They involve judgments about what matters, whose interests count, how to weigh present against future, certain against uncertain. Science can inform these decisions by providing data on ecological processes, predicting consequences of different actions, and clarifying trade-offs. But science alone cannot determine what ought to be done. Organisms do not deliberate about sustainability. They respond to immediate conditions, reproducing when resources are available, dying when they are not. Natural selection operates on short timescales, favoring traits that enhance reproductive success in current environments, not traits that ensure long-term persistence of populations or ecosystems. Humans, with their capacity for foresight and collective action, can potentially manage resources with future consequences in mind. but whether they will do so effectively remains uncertain. History offers examples of both sustainable practices and catastrophic collapses. Indigenous societies often managed landscapes for centuries, maintaining productivity through practices like controlled burning, rotational harvesting, and protection of sacred groves. Other societies depleted resources, leading to environmental degradation and societal decline. The difference often lay in institutions that regulated resource use, cultural norms that restrained overexploitation, and feedback mechanisms that linked individual behavior to collective outcomes. When resources are open access, individuals have incentives to extract as much as possible before others do, leading to overexploitation. When resources are managed collectively or privately with secure tenure, incentives align better with long-term sustainability. Scaling these principles to global challenges like climate change or biodiversity loss is difficult. Ecosystems cross political boundaries. Greenhouse gas emissions in one country affect climate everywhere. Overfishing in international waters depletes stocks for all nations. Coordination among many actors, each with different interests and capacities, is required but hard to achieve. Yet, ecosystems themselves exhibit coordination without central control. Ant colonies, flocks of birds, schools of fish, all display organized behavior, emerging from simple rules, followed by individuals responding to local information. No single ant directs the colony, no bird leads the flock. Coordination arises through feedback and interaction. Such self-organization is common in complex systems, from weather patterns to economic markets to neural networks. Local interactions give rise to global patterns. Understanding these patterns requires looking beyond individual components to relationships and dynamics, how parts influence each other and how the whole shapes the parts. Ecosystems are structured by such interactions. Who eats whom? Who competes with whom? These interactions create networks of dependencies and influences. Removing one species can have ripple effects throughout the network. Introducing a new species can disrupt existing relationships, sometimes with dramatic consequences. Invasive species, introduced to regions where they did not evolve, sometimes become dominant, outcompeting native species and altering ecosystem structure. They may lack natural predators or diseases that limit them in their native range. They may exploit resources more efficiently or reproduce more rapidly. Not all introduced species become invasive, but those that do can cause significant ecological and economic harm. Controlling invasive species is difficult and expensive. Eradication is sometimes possible if action is taken early, before populations become established. But once invasives spread widely, management often shifts to containment or mitigation. Biological control, introducing predators or pathogens from the invasive species' native range, can be effective but carries risks if the control agent itself becomes problematic. The movement of species around the world, intentionally or accidentally, has accelerated with global trade and travel. Ships carry organisms in ballast water and attached to hulls. Air cargo transports insects and pathogens. Horticulture and the pet trade introduce plants and animals to new regions. The result is a homogenization of biotas, with the same cosmopolitan species appearing worldwide, while unique regional species decline. Biogeography, the study of species distributions across space and time, reveals patterns shaped by evolution, dispersal, extinction, and environmental conditions. Islands, for instance, often harbor unique species found nowhere else, having evolved in isolation. But island species are vulnerable to introduced predators and competitors, having evolved without defenses against them. Continental regions have their own biogeographic patterns, with distinct assemblages of species in different climatic zones, and separated by barriers like mountains, deserts, or oceans. Over geological time, these patterns shift as continents drift, climates change, and species migrate, adapt, or go extinct. The current distribution of species reflects this history. Marsupials are diverse in Australia, where they radiated in the absence of placental mammals. Cacti are native to the Americas, while similar-looking succulents in Africa evolved independently. Tropical rainforests are concentrated near the equator, where high rainfall and stable temperatures support year-round productivity. Biodiversity is not evenly distributed. Tropical regions harbor far more species than temperate or polar regions, a pattern observed for most taxonomic groups. Hypotheses for this latitudinal diversity gradient include higher productivity in the tropics, greater habitat complexity, longer evolutionary time without. It endures. And it continues to surprise us. Somewhere right now, a coral is releasing its eggs into the dark. A bird is flying in its sleep. A flower is counting the footsteps of a bee. You are part of this story too, not separate from nature but made of it. Cells and sparks, memories and motion, a living thread in the long unfolding pattern of Earth. So wherever you are, allow your mind to rest. Let your breath slow. Let your thoughts grow soft at the edges. The journey doesn't end. It simply pauses here until curiosity calls again. Sleep well, and thank you for dreaming with us.